Here's something weird about horror movies. A rubber monster from 1982 can feel more terrifying than a $200 million CGI monster. Okay? Now, don't come at me. This is what I think. Uh, why do practical creatures feel far more scarier than its CGI counterparts? Right? Now, I know this has been a topic for a while, and it's one that I kind of want to hit on and kind of get my opinion out there. And, want to hear your guys' opinion too about this. Why do practical creatures feel scarier than CGI monsters? I think, well, first of all, while talking about this, I'm going to work on this sculpt because this is for a creature I'm making, and the head kind of fell apart, and so did the body. So we're going to sculpt this while I'm talking about this. Oh, I can't believe I have to rebuild the whole thing. It's so sad, but that's okay. It fell apart because literally the clay slid off the armature, so I had to back it with foam and cut the foam out, and it was a whole thing. So now I gotta figure out how I want to approach fixing this guy, because he's just falling apart, bro. He's just falling apart. Hold on, I dropped the clay ball somewhere. There it is. Anyways. Yeah, why do practical creatures feel more, terrifying than the CGI monsters? I think a big part of that is because of real lighting compared to CGI lighting. When you have a monster or creature, a guy in a rubber suit or a puppet, big puppet, that people are puppeteering, you're using, real lighting on set compared to when you have a CGI monster, you're trying to match the lighting on set inside the program, and sometimes that doesn't look too well. All right, we've all watched a movie where they're using like a CGI monster, and it just looks bad. It just looks bad. Let's say it, okay? I'll say it. I might just tear this whole thing down and just restart. This is not working out right now. So, don't be afraid to destroy your beauties, I guess. There we go. Want to make sure this is right on there so it doesn't slide off again. There we go. But yes, real lighting plays a big role in that. It demands physical presence of the creature. So when you're using that lighting on set, you don't have to really match it up inside a program. And sometimes using that program, it can be a real pain in the butt to try and match that lighting up. And when it comes to lighting in movies, lighting is a huge part of that. So if you can't get it right with the CGI, well, then it's really going to show all the flaws and everything of that monster compared to, on-set real lighting. Just something about the real lighting and having a physical presence of a creature on set. It's just awesome. Let's just say it's just awesome, right? You can see the imperfections. It reads believability as long as the creature, is sculpted right, and the person who designed the creature knows what they're doing. But it's believable because it's an on-set, guy in a rubber suit or puppet or whatever, but it's on set. It's there. You can see all its imperfections and all that when you're watching the movie because, things in life aren't perfect. When you compare it to CG, I like this little tip here. This is like a mosquito slug kind of thing. So a little sharp, I don't even know what you call those. Horn will go there. But I need to build this back up. But when you compare it to like CG, it can look too perfect. When you are designing something in clay, you're going to have that asymmetry to the sculpt, to the monster. And things in real life are asymmetrical. Just take your phone, place it up to your face, and flip it. And you'll see that you look drastically different, right? Because we're asymmetrical in the face and even in the body. You know, maybe you'll see like a buff guy or a buff woman or whatever, and you can see like their abs don't look perfect, right? So right now I'm sculpting it. Well, I'm trying to be symmetrical, but there's going to be asymmetry, which will bring more believability to this creature. When you're using a 3D program, you have the option to sculpt in symmetry, which I would say 99% of all digital sculptors do, because sculpting asymmetrical in a program is hard as hell compared to sculpt. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. No, I don't think it's just me. You know, take a look at some like digital creations. You'll see how perfect a lot of those models look, right? Especially when they're rendered with the lighting and the materials. I'm not taking a shit on digital. I do digital myself. I enjoy it. But a gripe I've had with digital creatures, is they look too perfect. Even if you go in there and you try and try and do some asymmetry stuff, it still just looks too perfect. Compared to sculpting something out of clay, you're going to get that asymmetry looking more natural, right? The monster, the creature, the monster makeup, it's just going to read better, in my opinion, and it's just going to look more realistic compared to its CGI counterpart. And a big thing with that is the actors actually have something to act to on set instead of just, I don't know, tennis balls. We've all seen the behind the scenes of like movies of these days of actors acting to tennis balls. And it hurts my soul. It hurts my soul. I'm not gonna lie. You know, I think it was like Ewan. What's his name? Played Gandalf. Ian McKellen. He broke down on the set of The Hobbit because he had to act to tennis balls, compared to Lord of the Rings, where they had perspective, right, and you could still act to a person there, but he was acting to tennis balls, and he broke down and started crying. And I mean, I don't blame him, because all you saw was just him sitting on a chair and just a green screen and tennis balls everywhere. Now, when you have something practical that you can act to as an actor, you're going to get a better performance out of that actor, because the thing on set is there. It's in front of them. They can reach out and touch it, interact with it. It's tangible. It's there to say, hello, how are you doing? I'm here. We're working together. This is drying out. I gotta hit it with some water so it doesn't dry out on me. There we go. Just like that. Big thing with water-based clay is you gotta keep it moist. Which, it's okay. It's just really fast to work in compared to oil-based clay, but it's really good when you're making big sculpts. But like I was saying, the actors have something to act to, right? To act with. They can play off each other. They can see something like a monster, creature, or bad guy, and they can actually feel like they're scared because they have that physical thing in front of them, right? Like the kids in It, I guess the newer It, or even the TV show. Yeah, they got to act to Pennywise, but there's scenes of them saying, like, because of the makeup and how it's acted, they're actually scared on set. I mean, of course, Bill Skarsgård is not going to hurt them, but I'm just kind of trying to reinforce that whole thing of having a practical monster on set. The actor just acts better compared to acting to tennis balls. And the CGI, it often feels floaty. Sometimes if you pay close attention to CG, a CG character. You can sometimes see like maybe their footsteps don't interact with the floor properly. Um, they are not animating the monster or the character grabbing the physical person. You can kind of sometimes see like maybe like the hands not really interacting. Maybe the person that's acting towards a creature, their eyesight isn't lining up to what they're supposed to be acting to, because like I said, it's tennis balls. And then the artist who's doing all the CGI work has to try and guess, or I guess yeah, I can guess where that person is and where they're looking, and that in itself can be a real pain in the butt, I would imagine. I mean, I've watched enough behind the scenes to understand that for sure. But sometimes it just feels floaty, especially on like the lower budget stuff. Now we're talking about like something like a higher budget. Yeah, I mean they can look pretty good. Dune, Dune 2. Those worms look awesome. But I mean, again, that was like I mean, how much money did they spend on that? $350 million, or well, maybe 250? I can't remember. That's pretty high though. I mean, I don't know how you would. I mean, they did it back then with puppets and stuff. And I mean, let's not talk about the old Dune movie. Ooh, that's something, right? That's definitely something. But yeah, the textures and the materials, they just feel tangible. And your brain, I'm just trying to grab more clay here. Your brain knows when something's fake, right? It just senses it. You ever like watch something, a movie, TV show, and all of a sudden you're just like, oh, that doesn't look right. Why does that look weird? Something's off about this character, this monster, goblin, whatever you're watching. The brain can just sense it. Maybe it's the uncanny valley feeling compared to the physical flaws of a creature, like a realistic sculpted creature. I mean, uncanny valley isn't as bad as it was 10 years ago, right? But sometimes it still has that look to it where it's like just doesn't look right. And it's trying to smooth all this in here. And your brain can sense that. And sometimes it can take you right out of the movie. And that's happened to me countless times, especially with the newer movies today. If they don't do a good job, or I guess that depends on the art director or the art direction they're trying to go for. But the uncanny valley's still around, compared to a practical creature. Sometimes the practical creatures, they can have that uncanny valley look to them as well. Especially, the monsters from the 80s, right? I mean, I love some of those monsters, but sometimes it's like, well, that didn't age too well. But the CG, man, that does not age with grace. I'll tell you that right now. You take a look at some of those movies from the 90s, early 2000s, hell, even in the 2010s, you're like, man, that CG's rough. Especially in horror movies. Like, example, The Conjuring 2. They're going to have, like, this massive black demon. A guy in like, a rubber monster suit, right? And he was tall. I think they, like, built stilts into the suit or something. And he had these giant horns. And there's, like, behind-the-scenes pictures of this. And that was going to be Valak's true form. The nun. And they scrapped the idea. And they just decided to go with, oh, yeah, Valak will be a nun, and she's gonna scream, and we're gonna open up her mouth 5 times large. And that was a thing for so long, from the 2000s, even till this day, where you see like a monster and they scream and their mouth just opens like 5 times wide and just looks awful, you know. Practical effects, they they tend to age better. An example of that would be, just gotta wet this down a little bit. An example of that would be Starship Troopers, right? I don't know if you ever seen that movie, but great movie from the 90s. Action packed. Think like Helldivers 2 if you ever played that. And they actually, use puppetry. They use model making. And this was like the early days of, CG. And they use puppetry for the monsters and stuff. And they just look really good. Still to this day. The close-up shots. Even the far-away shots. But I will say the reason why that movie still looks so good to this day is because they mixed practical with CG. Now, they didn't go like crazy with the CG. Like nowadays where everything is CG, it feels, and has like no human touch to it. But Starship Troopers is one of those movies that has aged really well using practical and CGI. The monsters, the ships, they did a really good mixture. Now, if they didn't use CGI, I don't think it would hold up to this day. To be honest with you, I would say like the close-up shots of like the monsters, of like the bugs and using the puppets, I think those would still hold up. But like the spaceships and some of the faraway shots, I don't think they would have aged well if they're trying to be all practical with it. But to me, now I'm not shitting on CGI. This is my opinion. I think practical is better and it's just far scarier on screen. But in my opinion, I think the best, I don't know, the best way to go about that is mixing both mediums, because CGI can really boost up the practical, and the practical can really help with the CG and not make it look all crappy and whatnot, right? But that's just my opinion on why practical creatures, I don't know, feel more scarier compared to CGI. I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you feel the same way? Do you not? Then there's a whole conversation about AI, which AI, that's a topic for another time, man. Right? That is a discussion for another time. But yeah, let me guys know, what's your thoughts? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you prefer CGI? Practical? Yeah, let me know, guys. Let me know in the comments.